Hello and welcome to the Farm Ed podcast. Today I'm joined by Helen from East Leach Downs Farm, and we're going to be talking about pigs, public access and organic farming. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today. So what I'd like to know first is, how did you first get involved with pigs?
So when I was 16, which is quite a long time ago now, I wanted to go to agricultural college, not from a farming family. I had to have 2 years experience before I went to college. And so I went to the careers office in my hometown, and they said, yeah, we've got a job on a pig farm. And that's how I started on a 1980, this was, on a very intensive pig unit, which they all were in the 80s. It was a 90 sow unit. It was a multiplier. It was a very good welfare unit for an indoor unit. And I know an awful lot about pigs, about their behaviour. But looking back on how they were kept, it really is quite a horror story for pigs. Dark days for pigs, the 1980s.
So obviously your system is very different now. What was your journey to that system? How did you find out about sort of the other way of farming pigs?
Over the years of working with them, seeing various quite cruel systems, very confined systems, brought about really by the need for, or the wish for cheap meat. Pork was always seen as a cheap meat, same as chicken. And people looked for ways to keep them with no land, of course, keeping them on concrete, and buildings got more and more sort of intensive. And worked around various farms, seeing more and more of this confinement. Obviously, this was before the ban on, sows being confined for their whole lives. Things are quite different now for indoor pigs. Still not great, but better, certainly better than they were in the 80s. And I met my husband in the late 80s, early 90s. We were working for a pig improvement company where they're breeding pigs for better genetics, trying to get that more and more productive sow and export them. We read an article of somebody who was trying to keep sows cheaply. Housing had got really expensive by then for pigs. And I think that the theory was that we could keep sows outdoors in little arks cheaper than you could to house them. So this person was looking for contractors to run a 300 sow unit. The progeny would then go into straw barns and then onwards to be kept outside. And this would produce a premium product that people would pay more for and appreciate the welfare. This guy at the time found some land. It was actually organic land at the time. And you could keep non-organic livestock on organic land in those days. Things have changed now, obviously. I think there just wasn't the organic livestock around. And I think organic land was suffering from no inputs, basically, and people were taking silage and arable crops, the straw off, and it was getting depleted. So this land was in Gloucestershire, somewhere I'd never actually been. So we set out. So we were contractors. So the person who owned the sows provided the food and the vet and med. We provided the accommodation with the bank loan, the sow arks, the bedding, and all the fencing. And so that's how we started. Really, it was. We were keen to. We'd seen so much sow behaviour, so much pig behaviour. We thought that these animals, these creatures are really, really intelligent. On one of the intensive units we were working on, it was a nucleus unit, and because they were measuring daily live weight gain, you trained it was a boar test unit, so these boars were very valuable animals that were going out and they were testing their feed conversion ratios. And they were trained, they had a coloured disc in each of their ears, had a different colour. And we trained them to go into different places to be fed. And so, things like that, you realised how clever these animals were. They were so trainable. And I'd already fallen in love with pigs. They were just such amazing animals. They sort of spoke to you, in a way. other animals didn't seem to, I suppose with the exception of dogs. And so, yeah, that's how we started outdoors, just the two of us with 300 sows. We'd been in pigs for a long time already by then. And we then thought, well, we can do this. So we went to 600 sows, but we were producing 3-week weaners in those days. Everybody weaned at 3 weeks pretty much. And these pigs were going onto another contractor who had a straw-based system, and then presumably going outside. And then we were producing about 300 pigs a week, 300 piglets a week. And we were suddenly asked to cut pigs' tails, and we said, why? And they had to admit that these pigs ultimately were going onto slats. So a pig that had been born outside, grown for some weeks on straw, was then going to end up in a very intensive building, basically in the dark on slats with no bedding. And we said, this isn't what we signed up for. So we had an agreement that we bought 3 sows a week off this guy, and then we bred from them stock that could be called organic, as long as it was fed from conception. And that's how we started our organic herd. I think we had 160 sows in the beginning. And we thought, I bet we can do this, I bet we can keep them outside. And I think organic rules were changing then, so they had to be outside. The animals on the land had to be organic. Organic regulations are still, the regulations are still really strict. The pigs have to be outside for all their lives. And so, yeah, that's how we started. And we started with one field on a grazing licence with a very sympathetic landlord. And as time went on, it was clear that this organic land, they were trying to grow crops for us to go onto, and the land was just depleted. So we said, well, why, how about a tenancy? So we had a 5-year tenancy to our delight. And we've never really had that much security. But I suppose our security was knowing that we were productive, we could make a living, and we were doing good for the land and animal welfare. So gradually we took on all the organic land on that farm, and then in the year 2000, the other half of the farm came up for grabs, which wasn't organic, and we said, can we convert this as well? And so we then became arable farmers. Just by chance, really, and I feel really privileged that we've had the opportunity to learn from mistakes, but we're asking a lot of questions, research, asking. We're surrounded by other farmers, although not from farming families. Maybe that was a bit of an advantage, and not assuming you knew everything from the start. And so, we made quite a good go of it, really. So our pigs are part of our arable rotation. They are a crop in our 5-year rotation, and they fertilise the ground. And then latterly we've been trying to grow their food on the farm by completing the cycle. And our latest challenge was being soy-free. So we've just achieved that, literally, in the last 2 weeks.
That's perfect timing. I just love hearing about how people get into farming, because it can be the way you think. You have to inherit it, you have to be born into it, but there's so many amazing stories about how people have got into farming and done it sort of gradually and bit by bit built up, and it's so inspiring to hear. So with your pigs, I wondered if you could tell us, as we know with pigs not everything always goes to plan, so I was wondering if you could tell us a few of the sort of joys you've had, and a few of the things that have gone really well, and also a few of the things that have been a little bit more challenging.
Yes, so when we first started, we thought we need a tractor, definitely need a tractor with a loader, because we're going to pick up straw. So we'd already organised this tractor that we were going to buy, and it was stored over winter, and the people we bought it from didn't put any antifreeze in, and we went to pick it up and the blocks cracked, and that was a really big blow for us. So okay, so we managed to hire, so when we first moved there with the land, there wasn't enough work for both of us. So I worked on the neighbouring arable farm, around the grain dryer for them. And so we were able to hire machinery from then. So I think relationships are really important, relationships with, other farmers and working collaboratively. And so joys are really being your own boss, So we'd worked, we've had pigs outdoors for 32 years. And being able to, not from a farming family, being able to bring up your children on a farm is a huge privilege. I recognise it's probably even more difficult now. It was difficult then to find land, but and finding, and so grateful for finding a landlord who believed in organic and believed in giving people opportunities. Gosh, so the hard times were winters, freezing hands, having a caravan at the time. And housing was a real problem because there was no house with this land. But the landlord, because he was the owner of an estate, we were able to rent a cottage on the estate. So we've moved around a few times, and that was difficult with children. The land has actually since changed hands, and we have now got a cottage with the land. But we're still tenant farmers, and I still feel really lucky. I feel it's almost better not to be a landowner. I feel like we're a land, not even a land manager, we're a land caretaker. I like to think of it like that, I think land belongs to all of us, and we all need to eat. And I think we have a huge responsibility. And so I suppose that brings me on to sharing really. And this was something I'd thought of for a long time. And my girls had encouraged me to draw a wider picture really. Think about the people who didn't feel welcome on farms. They didn't relate food to where it's grown or how it's produced. It was food, it didn't really look like an animal. And I feel very lucky to have a vegan daughter who did an animal welfare degree. And she constantly reminds me about the responsibility, how we have to constantly look at what we're doing. Can we do this any better? If we choose to eat meat, what responsibility do we have to these creatures? And we really do have a huge responsibility to keep them as best we can. I think the message is getting through. We need to eat less meat. We really do. Environmentally, financially, everything. And I think we don't pay the true price for intensively produced meat. We don't pay the environmental cost. A lot of it is still subsidised. And I feel that pigs and poultry have never been supported in agriculture, and I think that's good. I think we've had times. So the hard times have been where the pig price fluctuated. We are wholesale. We sell wholesale mainly. We do a little bit through our own butchery. So we have been at the mercy of the pig production cycle, because it's quite quick to get into producing pigs. There has been times when the price has been really low and we have struggled. We've had a couple of times where we've been supplying somebody who's gone under financially. I had a big hit early on. So it was a few years after we started and we lost 15,000. I remember, and we just survived it. It was somebody else who'd gone under. It was the guy we were contracting for originally. And then some caterers who, took too long to pay and then went under. So we started to get more and more control over our business. And very recently, for the first time, we have been price makers rather than price takers. So yeah, that's a real, yeah. And I feel we're probably quite unique in being organic and not a big farm, but reasonably big, and being soya free and feeding them from the farm. So I think there's a premium to be had for that. I mean, soya is high demand and there's very little soya coming through. So it's made the whole industry think about being soya free, whereas soya was actually quite a cheap protein for pig feed. So, you know, we're looking to alternative sources. And then, so back to the sharing information, and also my daughter's partner is not from a rural area, and when he came to visit, he would be very careful where he walked. He would say, "Is it all right to walk on here? You know, keep to the path. We have to keep to the path." And on social media, particularly during COVID, I would see quite anti posts from farmers about people walking on a wider path. They were trying to avoid each other. We were told to keep distance, and we were told to walk, and there wasn't enough space. You know, we know about the mental health benefits of nature, of being out. And I felt really like, you know, that this has got totally, really, really wrong. Farmers were understood, but also we were very privileged. We could walk our dogs out on, you know, land that, we looked after. And there were people squashed on paths. And I thought, we need to do something about this. And so our current landlord is an educational charity. So they were quite pro what I was planning, which was a permissive path around the farm. So we got a grant from the Farming in Protected Landscapes funding to put up an information hub on wheels. We're an AONB, so it's our planning restrictions are very tight, as long as it's on wheels. And it's accessible by wheelchair. And we have an accessible toilet, and then we are trying to make an accessible path, which is not an easy task around arable fields. So we planted a 3-metre strip of sort of hard-wearing, sort of lawn-type grass that hopefully wouldn't grow too quickly and wouldn't need mowing too often. And so the idea was to create a perimeter path wherever the pigs were, because they rotate around the farm, so wherever they were, following the path around the farm, you would always be able to see pigs, and you'd go back to the harbour, learn about them, and basically make people who maybe didn't feel welcome on farms say, you know, this is free to use. I accept that we're not in walking distance from anywhere. You need a car to get to us. You need some sort of transport, but we do have the occasional school group. I'm hoping to grow that, But you know, basically to say, come and see us. You know, we don't bite. We need support. We need consumer support to keep going. But we have to be open with what we're doing. We have to, whatever is on our website, we have to say, if anyone comes around the farm, we have to be able to say, have to justify what we're doing. And, you know, we mustn't have anything to hide. And we must say, you know, buy our products, but, you know, this is how we do it. And, you know, this is a way. And last night at the hairdressers, I was really shocked by a question by my 40-year-old hairdresser who actually asked me, well, we've always talked about our farming and talking about the event, the Pastured Pigs event, and he said, but aren't all pigs kept outside? And I said, what do you mean? Well, you know, so they do have shelters, you know, so and those little ark things, but aren't all pigs kept outside like that? And I said, no. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, they're kept inside buildings on concrete or on slats. And he said, no. And I do the parallel with, if you ask a child, most primary school children, if you ask a child to draw a pig, they will draw it with grass. We'll draw it in a field, probably with flowers in. And a toy farmyard. I bought some friends' children a farmyard, and it had a paddock with pigs in. And I thought, absolutely. And there was no high-rise building. There was no intensive pig sheds, because we don't want to know that. We don't want to know about how that's what the majority of pigs' lives are, never seeing the light of day. And it's still less than 0.5% of pigs in the UK are organic, kept outside for their whole lives.
I was surprised when you said that earlier, actually. It's,
Still, yeah. It's tough. It's tough for the people. Labour is a big problem. Labour is one of our, problems, because it's a tough life.
Yeah.
It's lovely outside in summer, but come winter, there is no shed. There is no mucking out, but there's no shed to go and hide in. Yeah, absolutely. We provide waterproofs,
One thing I'd just like to touch on quickly is welfare, and that's something, say the Pastured Pig course that we run here at Farmer, that's something that we've been talking about quite a bit, and it's not assuming that just because your pigs are outdoor that they're high welfare.
Absolutely.
And what I'd like to ask you is, for people who are thinking about maybe starting out in pigs or converting to pasture pigs, where can they go for advice? Where can they go to learn? What would you advise them to do?
Yeah, I really think some sort of formal training. I think unless you understand the needs of a pig, you really can't. I think starting from scratch, thinking there's somebody selling a couple of weaners here, let's get them and let's keep them here. And often people come to the farm and ask, can we have a couple of weaners? Oh, we need gilts. Yes, we need gilts because they're good. And I say, where are you going to keep them? And they say, we've got a little paddock. And I say, okay, you do realise they're going to turn that over. They will dig your paddock. Oh, okay, right. We'll think again. And to be honest, we don't let weaners go. And so you really do need a lot of research, a lot of reading up. You can reach out to people, but often those people are starting out themselves and don't have all the answers. So Pastured Pigs course is a really good start. It really is. There's a lot of people there learning from each other who have made mistakes and are getting to grips with it. But it's not an easy answer. People fall in love with pigs and think, I really want pigs. And people come to the farm and say, I love pigs. And I say, where do you get your pork from? And they say, supermarket. They don't actually, they don't think it through. So they require a lot of attention. They require feeding. You can't keep pigs on pasture. Pigs are non-ruminant animals. They do need some sort of concentrate feed. And that's expensive. But they need feeding properly. And you need to think about water. Water's hugely important, the forgotten nutrient. And housing, bedding, how you're going to be able to move. We talked a lot today about how you're going to move your accommodation. If you haven't got a tractor, that's really difficult. You need to think big and run through a scenario. Go and visit people. The problem with visiting pig farms is often we're a high health herd, so we insist that people have 48 hours pig clean before they come to us. But we're always open to visitors. Come and see what we do. Come and see, how much mud there is. The state of us in January. So yes, we dream about things, but we need to know the reality. And I also find a vet. Find a really good vet. There are some wonderful pig specialist vets who've got a wealth of knowledge, but I think professional support is really important. Don't try and do it yourself. Asking other people about, what do you think about this? And pigs are survivors, and so they are easy to abuse, same as chickens. But get yourself a good vet. That's my advice.
That's brilliant, thank you. And where can people find out more about your farm and what you're doing and how to come and visit and find the permissive footpath?
So we've got a website, eastleachdowns.co.uk. Have a look at our website. We do have some social media. I'm not very good at keeping it up with social media. I do try. You can find us on the map. We are open every day, except Tuesdays. That is a restriction put on by the landlord so it doesn't become a right. Apparently you only need to be closed for one day of the year, but we thought maybe Tuesday was a good start. But the hub is open all the time. You can come. It's a warm space. It's beautiful. Sunset in summer is just fantastic there. I provide tea and cake on Fridays and the weekends. For a small donation if people feel able to, and you can pick up a map. We've got a map there that directs you. I've got signs up. One of my to-dos is QR codes, so that I can change them for each field as the field changes. It's pigs at the moment around the hub, but come May it will be a crop. The pigs will have moved. People are constantly surprised. Oh, the pigs have gone. They can't see them from the road anymore. And you think, where have they got? Oh, you've got rid of pigs. No, they just moved. But we love people who don't normally access countryside. Anyone who thinks I don't belong, but I don't feel it's anything to do with me. I'd love people to feel like, oh, there's somewhere I can go. Yes, you've got to get there, but we don't ask for any financial, support for this. I got a grant for the hub, the meeting space, and you can also rent it out for meetings. Our landlord does actually have out of the office days there too, and it's just a good space. It's got some information about how intensive pig rearing, where to get information about things, all sorts of things, how we keep our pigs, where to buy good pork, what organic means, what free range means, things like confusing labels, outdoor bred, which can be very confusing. You can breed a pig outside and then it can go on stats. Outdoor reared, slightly better, can be outdoor it up to a weaner and then go inside, which sometimes I feel is almost worse. But yeah, we love people to come, and we've got a mobility vehicle, an all-terrain mobility vehicle, on loan from the Disabled Ramblers, and our landlord has offered another when that one goes back. But that's for for loan. It's free to use. If somebody isn't able to walk the paths, they can go around, and we're trying to make them as smooth as we possibly can.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Thank you so much, Helen, for coming talking to me today. It's been such a good conversation, and I can't wait to come and visit the hub.
Oh, good. Everybody's welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.